On Saturday, May 14th, en route to a meeting in Paris to finalize the details of the latest bailout agreement for the Eurozone, IMF chief Dominique Stross-Khan was pulled off an Air France jet and put under arrest by the New York State Police, where he would sit for 6 days in prison without bail at Rikers Island. While some who believe the mainstream news media think that this is just another scandal, serious political forces understand that the takedown of Stross-Khan represents a cancellation of the bailout, and that Stross-Khan was taken out of the picture, and in the way it was done, indicates that some people now understand what Larush understands and has understood. Now is the time we move for a fundamental change in our global financial system.
There is no possibility of a non-collapse of the present financial system. None. It's finished now. The present financial system cannot continue to exist under any circumstances, under any presidency, under any leadership, or any leadership of nations. Only a fundamental and sudden change in the world monetary financial system will prevent a general, immediate, chain reaction type of collapse. At what speed, we don't know, but it will go on, and it will be unstoppable. And the longer it goes on before coming to an end, the worse things will get.
Since that moment in 2007, all global events have been defined and shaped by a battle between those cowardly and evil forces who have attempted to save that failed system through forced government bailouts, versus the few patriots who recognize that it is Wall Street and the City of London who are bankrupt. And with a Glass-Steagall bankruptcy reorganization, we could save the legitimate parts of our commercial banking system and leave the fictitious assets of Wall Street out to dry. Right now, we're going to review key points of this battle from 2007 to the present to put the arrest of Dominique Stross-Khan in perspective.
The only way they can pass this bill is by creating and sustaining a panic atmosphere. That atmosphere is not justified. Many of us were told in private conversations that if we voted against this bill on Monday, that the sky would fall, the market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 points the first day, another couple thousand the second day, and a few members were even told that there would be martial law in America if we voted no. That's what I call fear-mongering. Unjustified. Proven wrong.
In 2008, under threats from Wall Street and London, Congress capitulated to the first bailout plan, saying that they told us there were no other options. But there was one other option. In fact, it was the only option. Larush warned then that if an attempt was made to bail out these worthless assets, we would see a hyperinflationary blowout of the whole global system. At that time, Larush garnered nationwide support at the state and local level for the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act, which would have put a moratorium on home foreclosures while at the same time erecting a firewall between commercial banking and investment banking and forcing a bankruptcy reorganization of the toxic paper based on the principle of Glass-Steagall. But on September 6, 2008, Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and Chairman of the House Financial Services Committee Barney Frank declared instead that the federal government had unlimited authority to bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's mortgage-backed securities, launching what would soon become an attempted bailout of the entire transatlantic monetary financial system. That 2008 troubled asset relief program was never going to work in the first place, and by March of 2010, the U.S. federal government, through the Federal Reserve, had taken on over $2 trillion in toxic assets from private investment banks. And at the same time, the situation in Europe quickly began falling apart. What was sold as a Greek crisis in early 2010 was in fact the explosion of Spain's Banco Santander, exposing the utter bankruptcy of the entire European inter-alpha group of banks, who themselves were saddled with a mountain of toxic debt. So in May of that year, the IMF and the EU announced the creation of the European Stabilization Mechanism, a lending facility which guaranteed a line of credit to any insolvent European bank. However,
Western Europe, Central Europe are now doomed by the euro system. And right now, in the past week, the euro system has been disintegrating. It's called the Greek crisis. It's not a Greek crisis. Greece was put through an operation to try to hide and protect the British system. It's a transatlantic crisis, which is now centered in the euro system. The euro system is now in a process of a general breakdown. And nothing can save it in its present form.
In the United States, as early as May, June of 2009, Larush again provided the only pathway for a recovery of the nations of the transatlantic community, which would require those nations to dump the monetary system. Larush launched the fight to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act in the United States. On May 6th of 2010, the Glass-Steagall bill was officially introduced into the U.S. Senate by Maria Cantwell and John McCain. The official press release posted on Cantwell's website read, "It is no coincidence that our financial sector got completely out of line once the Glass-Steagall prohibitions were overturned in 1999. By consolidating commercial banking, investment banking, and insurance into single financial companies, institutions grew so large and became so interconnected that they were too big to fail. It's time to go back to separating commercial banking from Wall Street investment banking." 2 days later, however, at an international webcast, Deborah Freeman, Larush's national spokeswoman, announced that it was communicated to her that were Glass-Steagall to be reenacted as U.S. law, Great Britain would consider it an act of aggression. Immediately following the introduction of Glass-Steagall into the U.S. Senate, sources close to the Obama White House reported that not only were Obama, Geithner, and Larry Summers waging an all-out campaign to kill the Cantwell-McCain amendment, but that the White House had instead been working with a desperate Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy to secure unlimited funds from the U.S. Federal Reserve for a $1 trillion bailout of the bankrupt British inter-alpha system via the Eurozone nations. So when the Cantwell-McCain bill came up for a vote in the Senate, it was defeated, but only by one vote. Ever since the Glass-Steagall bill was killed in the Senate by Obama 1 year ago, everything that Larush had warned about back in 2007 began to unfold. A wave of defaults across Europe showed just how bankrupt the whole Eurozone really was. Skyrocketing hyperinflation of food and other basic commodities, which took off across the Maghreb region, leading to unprecedented protests which toppled whole governments, was correctly identified by those nations as being caused by the Fed's quantitative easing bailout policy. And combine this with the bankruptcy of virtually every state in the U.S. and our dangerous lack of preparedness for natural disasters and extreme weather, and you see what Larush has been warning about, that if we attempted to bail out these fictitious assets, we would see a disintegration of the entire global financial system. Then, January of this year, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, who 2 years ago was tasked to investigate the causes of the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, published their final report. The report, despite what the White House was doing, confirmed that the crisis could have been prevented and that the bailouts were never necessary. The White House did their best to ignore the FCIC report's findings until April of this year, when Marcy Kaptur reintroduced the Glass-Steagall bill into the House of Representatives, again demanding that there be a separation of our commercial banking system from this bankrupt monetary system. The only problem? Obama. That is, until last weekend, when one of the leading members of the international bailout team, of which Obama plays a key U.S. role, set himself up to be taken out of the picture, bringing this entire 3-year bailout scheme, which had been forced upon governments everywhere, to a screeching halt. On May 23rd, Dominique Strauss-Khan was supposed to be on his way back to Europe to attend a meeting of the Eurozone finance ministers in Brussels, where the so-called Greek crisis was going to be discussed. Strauss-Khan never made that meeting, or the one he was supposed to have with Angela Merkel, to plan the next bailout, because he was arrested by police for attempted rape of a hotel worker in New York City. While many might see this as just another bad guy getting what was coming to him, think instead who this is and what would change were he taken out of the picture. The people responsible for Strauss-Kahn's arrest did it with the understanding of what Larush warned in 2007, that there was never a possibility of a non-collapse of the current system, and that if Stross-Khan were allowed to make it to those meetings and finalize those bailouts, that could bring down the entire system immediately. This means that the policy which sold out the American people to the tune of $17 trillion under both the Bush and Obama administrations has effectively just been canceled, leaving those same enemies of our people high and dry. But we are by no means in the clear. What we have is an opportunity to take advantage of a moment of great political transition, where great forces are at work in a world where people like Obama, Geithner, and Stross-Khan just no longer have it made.